Today, on the Basketball Manitoba podcast, we have Tanya McKay. She's the head coach of the University of Winnipeg Wesmen program, a position she's held for 26 years. She's the longest serving head coach in the program's history, where she's guided the team to over 500 wins with 4 national championships appearances, finishing second in 2005. She's also coached the national team program for 2 years. She was awarded the Manitoba Coach of the Year in the Open category in 2014 after winning gold with the provincial team at the national championships. She was also recognized as Canada West Coach of the Year in 2017. As a player for the Wesmen, she played 5 years and was recognized as an All-Canadian 3 times, was 4 times All Great Plains Team, GPAC Rookie of the Year, and was GPAC MVP. She also appeared in the national championships 3 times. She spent over 26 years in the Manitoba community as a coach at every level from community club to university. She's also a member of the Basketball Manitoba Hall of Fame, class of 2003. Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darcy.
So before I clicked record, a practice that I've started to do is to read off the person's resume, because here's the thing. So sometimes people have this nice tight resume and everything's there. But, I was even doing, I was interviewing Jerry Hemmings, and Jerry Hemmings has a website, jerryhemmings.com. So I go on his website. Oh, this is great. And I start off by saying, Jerry's the winningest coach in Canadian basketball history. And then he says, well, I have to correct you on that. And he's like, I'm no longer the winningest coach, I guess, on the men's side. And then he goes on to tell me, who is the winningest coach now. So you and I were kind of chatting, and I'm saying, okay, I'm reading off your resume, and you're like, well, actually, you know what? I did this, and I actually only had you down for 16 years, even though it's been 26. And then you went on to say, you know what? I've also spent, was it over 10 years with the Manitoba provincial team? Was it more than that? Over 10? Yeah. You reminded me that you won a national. So I was like, okay, your resume is huge. You've been doing it for so long, and there was things that even we could have added that I had in and I'm like, okay, we can't add all this stuff. So I'm super happy to have you on the podcast. I kind of want to start out and ask you, as I've been trying to do with as many coaches as possible that I'm interviewing, is about the thing that we're going through right now. It's the pandemic. And I know everyone's kind of talking about it because there's always these changes and things are happening. But the one thing I want to focus on is how you dealt with it as a coach. And if there's any takeaways of things that were positives from that experience that you'll carry forward into, to future years coaching, that you weren't doing at all before the pandemic?
Great question. Coming through the pandemic definitely has been a challenge, especially when we were in lockdown. One thing we did weekly, and it was great for the team. We kept in touch on Zoom. And each week when we kept in touch on Zoom, everybody would get a chance to share how their week was, how their training was going, because they were training at home. But it was just a way to stay connected. And one of the great things that kind of developed through the Zoom meetings each week, one of the players would lead Zoom. So they would be the host. And so I really thought that was a great experience for the athletes. They had to prepare for the Zoom meeting. They had to do an activity with the team on Zoom. And that kind of just got rolling. And that was a lot of fun. And we did that last winter and moved into the spring with that. And we found it was very motivational because we kept in touch, we stayed connected. And then when we were allowed to train again, it was kind of a very smooth transition. So it was, it was great.
Do you think that's something that you will potentially do this off season?
Definitely it's a way to keep the team intact and together, especially when you have out of town players. The group we have right now that has come out of, last spring into this season are all local players. One of our players, Suran from India, wasn't able to come into Canada this year. So she ended up staying in India. But she was part of our Zoom meetings, and she stayed connected with the team. But definitely, through COVID, it was definitely a challenge. Even when we were in the small groups, when we were allowed to go back to the gym, the kids were so excited to be back in the gym. And, I think because we did such a good job keeping in touch, it really helped when we were in the gym and starting to practice again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been, kind of asking different coaches at various levels how it's affected them or their players. And I think it's, based off of what I gauge is it seems to have maybe heightened, or maybe not even heightened it, but maybe emphasized the importance of that culture and the connection with the people, and how that may, again, lead to success, but then even more so just the enjoyment of the entire process.
Absolutely. We just tried to be very creative in keeping them connected. We did workout challenges. We did the kind of like the I think it was 3.5 months where the athletes were the host. We just try to do different things to keep them engaged, learn skills that perhaps they weren't confident. Like there were kids who struggled a bit hosting, but it was a great experience. They had to talk in front of their whole team. And so little things like that are just great life skill moments where they can learn and grow. And we took the positive out of the situation. It was a tough situation, but we had guest speakers come in. We had Tom Kendall come in and talk to the kids. Cal Botterill come and talk to the kids. Steph Clayson spent some time with the kids doing, pre-injury workouts. Mm-hmm. So we really tried through the COVID, kind of that stretch last year to keep them engaged and also learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And have you seen a difference? So, flashback to 2019 again, there's probably been some players that have changed, but flashback to like pre-pandemic and now going through that and post-pandemic, have you seen a different maybe appreciation for being able to get in the gym, or has it just kind of been for them? I mean, maybe you feel that way just because you have, when you've been around, you kind of have a better sense of things, and kids are just maybe happy to be back. But have you seen any shift in any of their mentalities or their approach to basketball and being with their teammates?
I definitely saw the excitement when we returned. They were, they wanted to be in the gym. They wanted to play basketball. When we started really practicing through September and October and playing, October, November of this year, you just saw it. You saw the excitement and, the pregame prep and the routines they were practicing and, even the coaches, my coaching staff, I have a big coaching staff. So, they were excited to be back in the gym working with the kids. Mm-hmm. And so, definitely this has been a great first half for us, and we're really geared up for the second half.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, enough about that. I mean, again, you're the guest here. I'm sure you could talk about this season and all that stuff for a long time, but we're here to talk about you. So I kind of wanted to start at the beginning, which is typically how it works, the origin story. And I'm just curious if you can, what are the first memories of basketball do you have? Like, how old were you? What were you doing? Who introduced you to the game?
Wow. I go back to junior high. When I was in grade 7, I actually tried out for the basketball team. Everybody kind of, when you get out of elementary and you go into middle school or junior high, you get excited about all these team sports. And so I tried out for the basketball team and actually got cut. And I was really discouraged and disappointed. But, that after that school year, that summer, I went to my first basketball camp at St. Mary's University in Halifax. And that just fired me up and got me excited. And in grade 8, I tried out again and made it. And that kind of just set the tone. And I was in love with basketball after that and played every opportunity I could. And started playing on the provincial team in Nova Scotia, or for Nova Scotia, in grade 10. And at that time, it was a U21 team, so 21 and under, and I was very young. And so there was 2 of us actually, Angie McLeod, who went on to play at Dalhousie University, and myself. And we were the youngins, and we were with the provincial team for many years in Nova Scotia. And it was a wonderful experience, but definitely the stepping stone for basketball and moving up to the university level.
So you were like a 16-year-old playing with some players who were 20, 19, 20 years old?
They were all playing university ball. And
wow.
Angie and I, we got our butts kicked every day. But we were full of grit and determination and played hard and learned a ton. And it was a great experience.
I was going to say, that's a very rare experience. And again, you can say, oh, okay, well, Nova Scotia is a smaller province. So it is a basketball province, but it's smaller. Okay. So maybe, but even now, like, you're not going to get a 16-year-old that's going to get that type of experience. So they're playing with college players for what, 2 or 3, 4, I guess, I don't know how many years you would have played in the provincial team, 3 years before you were actually in college yourself.
Yeah, it was definitely a highlight. It was definitely hard. But I got lucky when I was playing basketball in Nova Scotia. I would go, when I was in high school in grade 10, we would go to Dalhousie and play rat ball. And rat ball was just scrimming with everybody. We played with guys and girls, and everybody was there, and there'd be games going on all the time in the Dalplex. And so I just happened to get lucky one day where the provincial team coach was actually there working with other players. And here he saw this, I lived in a small town outside of Halifax, saw this kid coming into Dalplex, just running up and down the floor and playing. And he just came over after one of the scrims and asked if I'd be interested in trying out for the provincial team. And, I was wide-eyed. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll play. I'll play anywhere. And so, yeah, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and had that opportunity to play provincial team. And even when I went on to high school, I had the opportunity to not only just play high school, but also play senior women's.
Really?
And so
at the same time?
At the same time, like, I just was so in love with the game that I played as much as I could.
So hold on, I got to ask, this is not like you're playing your high school season and at the same time, or was it after the season ended, like in the spring?
It was the same time. It was, I would have 2 games. Sometimes I had 2 games on one night. So I'd go from a high school game and scoot into Halifax, quick 20-minute drive, and then go play with my senior women's team. And back then, like, senior women's is different from here. Like, senior women's back then, there were a number of different senior women's teams playing in league. And then the team that won the championship would then go on to the national championship.
Yes. I've heard this before.
And so when I was in grade 12, I was fortunate to be on the Red Fox senior women's team, and we won the provincial championship and actually went to Saskatchewan for the national championships. And that's actually where I met Colleen Dufresne and Tom Kendall, because I was still in high school.
No way.
Yeah. So It was kind of an interesting experience.
Wow. I'm always so intrigued, whenever because there's a certain era when, I don't know what you would know this, but senior basketball, what was one thing, and then it just stopped being that thing. And I'm sure there was a slow decline. I'm not sure when that took place, but I'm always so amazed when I hear these stories. You're not going to national championships, and the other elite players, former university players, or someone like yourself who's not even, like, they're playing in this. This is very serious. It was, correct me if I'm wrong. It almost sounded like it was a semi-professional.
It felt like it. It was a big deal. And, I was just totally immersed in it. I loved it. And so as soon as my high school team, my season finished, 2 weeks later, we were off to Saskatchewan playing in the national championships. And we did play Team Manitoba. I don't remember the final score, to be honest, because I was on cloud 9. So every game I played was just so much fun. But ironically, Colleen Dufresne, she did guard me. So
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I got a few memories back there.
So, you mentioned kind of like you told your early basketball, journey up into, up to the end of high school. Now, we've all have mentors, right? People who are critical and kind of like, whether they be pushing us through or guiding us or however you want to say it, they're just giving us advice. And I'm sure you've been a mentor to many, many people throughout the years, but throughout that time frame in your life, who were some of those early mentors that kind of guided you or taught you lessons?
Well, definitely my high school coach, Rick Plato, phenomenal guy. He was just out of university playing and then came and coached us in high school. And he coached me all 3 of my years. He currently is coaching the Dalhousie men's team.
Okay.
And super guys, very knowledgeable. But he pushed us hard when we played in high school, and he was part of opening that door to be recruited and play elsewhere. The other coach that kind of had a lot of influence as well was Alan Way. He was my provincial team coach for Nova Scotia. So he knew Tom Kendall. He kind of opened the door to other universities outside of the Maritimes. And so I was pretty fortunate because I had a lot of people who were kind of helping me along the way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so you mentioned Tom Kendall now a few times. So I have to ask, you're obviously a very talented player. You play in the provincial team, you're playing senior women's. Somehow you're playing high school basketball and senior women's at the same time. Why did you choose Winnipeg? How were you recruited? What's the story? Was it as simple as, hey, just go there, they're really good? Or was there a decision to be made? What was that like?
Well, I think when it came down to the decision, it was either just kind of stay somewhere in the Maritimes and play near to home or try to go away. And my dream was to be on the national team. And, Tom, his current player, Beth Cochran at the time, was on the national team, and they were a very successful program, doing very well. And so, I kind of just took that chance and said, hey, I'm going to Winnipeg. I was 18 years old. I packed my bags and away I went, and it was the best decision of my life. It was great experience. I got to leave home and experience the world, and attend the university and play basketball. So I was in my glory.
So, I mean, do you remember any of the other, like when you say stay home, is that just to stay at, was that Bethel would be the main school, or there must have been there had to have been other schools that were like, Tanya, like we'd really like you to come play.
I was very lucky. I was, I talked to St. Mary's, Dalhousie, University of New Brunswick, PEI, they all reached out, and I almost committed to UNB. That's where Claire Mitten was coaching at the time. And then when I had taken that trip with the senior women's team to nationals, that's when the door just kind of opened right up. And I heard from a lot of teams out west, Toronto, McGill. So it's interesting because they didn't know me before. And so when I went to these senior national championships, there were a lot of coaches there. A lot of coaches were playing. A lot of coaches were coaching. So
yeah, I guess so.
I just, I got lucky again, right place, right time. And I met with Colleen. I met with Tom at these championships. And so the recruiting process was a challenge because it was overwhelming.
I can imagine. And you're by yourself at this time. Like, were any of your parents with you or anyone to like help guide you at the time?
No, I was just with my team, and they're just saying, hey, go have fun. And so, but when I sat down with Tom, it was kind of the right thing and at the right time for me. And so I made the decision on my return back from the championships. So
you knew you were coming back. You're like, I'm going there without question.
Yeah.
And so I have to ask, like, I know some people who lived in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, what I know, as far as in the winter, big snowstorms and like ice storms. Is that kind of the thing? And I have to ask, how did it compare to Winnipeg winter of just being windy and really cold? Is it similar?
No. No. Winnipeg is No. No, no, Nova Scotia winters are much milder. It's a different cold. It's
Mm,
a kind of a wet cold, whereas
yeah.
here it's just brutal.
It's like a
Um,
burning cold.
yes. When I was listening to your podcast with Colleen, I was absolutely jealous because you're both away
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
bloody
Yeah.
cold here.
Yeah, it is. This is I don't. This is just kind of an aside, but I always forget. And our summers are so nice, and you just say, "This is so great. Yeah, let's go to the lake. Let's do this," and it's all nice. And we're in the park, and then you forget how cold the winter is, and then it comes. You're like, "It wasn't this. I don't remember it being this cold. I just don't remember. Is this really? Do we really live here?" And that's every year I have that thought.
Yeah.
Complete aside. So anyway, so you go to Winnipeg, and when I was reading off your bio, so you played 5 years there. You were rookie of the year for the conference. You were conference all conference team 4 years. You're player of the conference 1 year. You were all Canadian. I think you were one time first team all Canadians and twice a second team all Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. So you have tons of individual success as a player, and like coming in straight as a rookie. I mean, to get rookie of the year in the conference, obviously that's a big award. But I want to ask you it's not always the case, but it can often be the case that when someone wins rookie of the year, the team they play on are usually middle of the pack or they're not as good. So it allows like that younger player to kind of shine a little bit. But in your first year, you guys were pretty good, right?
We were a top 10 team in the country. Beth Cochran was the best player in the country. She was an amazing player to play with. Kathy Holtman, like we just had such a strong team, and I was fortunate. I just right time, right place, great team, and had the opportunity to practice every day against tough players. So just slowly worked my way in and tried my best to contribute at both ends. And I was lucky that Tom could see how hard I worked, and I reaped the benefits. Getting on the floor and just some great memories with that. The Wesmen team over that 5 years of playing, and even as I moved up in my years, into my fourth and fifth year, when the Sandra Carroll and the Andrea Hutchins and Michelle Chambers came along, I was part of that group, and those kids were friends, and they went on to win. I mean, they went on to do great things, and
big time win.
So
Yeah.
I was part of that. I practiced every day with them. So I always say that, I had to work with them. I worked with them when they were younger. And I mean, Sandra Carroll, I remember my fifth year, she backed me up, but I should have been backing her up because she went on to have an amazing career. Right. So just a wonderful experience. I met a lot of great people along the way, a lot of awesome teammates to play with. And, it's playing was great. And then as soon as I started coaching, the playing stopped, which was, it's kind of neat to look back, at
that transition from player to coach. So, I do obviously have a bunch of questions about coaching and stuff like that, but I just wanted to kind of ask you, you said tons of good memories and you mentioned players. Do you have a memory that stands out as your fondest memory as a player at the University of Winnipeg? Is there anything that stands out that just comes to mind? You're like, oh, this is just a memory I'll kind of cherish.
It's every year was a different team with new people. And I love that safe world. We're in a safe, comfortable place. You go to school, you practice, you travel, you train. And that's what I remember the most, is that opportunity to play university ball. And probably the highlight for me, I wasn't a great student going in, but I came out a great student. And that was my highlight, because I really grew as a person. And, Tom Kendall was a big part of that. And I learned a lot about myself. And, after I finished playing, I had met Larry McKay in my fourth year. We got engaged in my fifth year, and we were married after that. He was a big influence kind of taking me in the direction of teaching, getting my education degree and coaching. And so kind of a lot of things moved along after playing. And but playing definitely was a great opportunity.
For sure. So as you mentioned, you're kind of reflecting before on the transition from playing and then becoming a coach. So, I guess tell the story of how you got into coaching, because as far as I know, it was pretty instant from player to coach. Like it was like you went very, very, very quickly.
It happened. Yeah, it happened very fast. I graduated and got back into school to take my education degree. And then I met Dennis Schroeffel. He was a teacher at Silver Heights Collegiate, and he was the stepping stone to coaching. He just said, you're done playing university. Do you want to come and coach my high school team? I'll be in the background. I'll be your mentor. You just coach. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about coaching, and so I was in shock that first year. That was in 91, 92. And I felt, when I look back, those poor kids, I made them run so much. They ran and ran. We were in great shape, but we were losing every game by like 40. and at the end of the season, I don't even know if we won a game that year. Dennis, I was actually going to give it up. And Dennis was like, no, you gotta keep plugging away at this. And so after that, I just tried to get my hand in every opportunity to coach, whether it was clinics or camps. Back then we had the regional provincial teams. I was trying to coach everything I could. Because I was driven. I wanted to be a great coach. And in 95, I applied for my first provincial team job. And I remember being in the interview and them asking a question, what do you want to do? And I said, well, and this was leading into the 95 Western Canada Games. And I said, well, my goal is in 2 years, I'm going to be a university coach. I didn't have a clue. I had no idea. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so in 95, I ended up coaching the Western Canada Games team with some great players, Aaron Sirocco, Jen Botterill, Dana Harvey, Megan Dixon. Gosh, we had a wonderful team. And then when that summer ended, the job at the University of Winnipeg opened up. So in 95, 96, it opened up. And so then I applied and I got it. So it was, when I look back, like I knew what I wanted and I just worked really, really hard and it paid off.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's one thing that stands out, and I've heard this now from a few people, oddly enough, and not oddly enough. I mean, it has to be it's a trend clearly. And it's the idea of people coaching, but then having these strong mentors you had mentioned, and they're saying, no, you got to keep doing this. Like they know, they can see it in you. Like, no, you got to keep going. Because for the amount of people that have been told they have to keep going, I'm sure there's a whole bunch that were just like, okay, thanks for coaching. We're going to move on from you. I'm going to look for Tanya, because Tanya would like, and they see that in you. And I'm always, again, I'm sure you've had those moments. I'm sure you've recruited people now and said, hey, look, I want you to come on my staff. You got this. And they might not necessarily believe in themselves right away. But that's what being a mentor is, right? Is kind of seeing that thing in somebody that they might not see yet. So were there any other people that kind of throughout the years, in those early years of coaching? I mean, I'm sure Tom was probably a positive influence on you as well. Were there any other people?
Dale Bradshaw. He was my mentor my first 5 years of coaching university. And he was amazing. Like, he was at my beck and call. And we would talk every second night. When I was on the road, we'd talk all night. I felt terrible for Heather, his wife, because I'd be calling, I'd be like, can I talk to Dale? But we spoke for hours on the phone, and he was tremendous, because he was my mentor, and he knew that I was pretty assertive, and I wanted to coach and learn, and he was in the background. but boy, he had some great time and advice for me. And, we'd watch video and we'd break things down. And that's how, that's why I'm still coaching now. I mean, I love the game, and he helped me love the game even more. He would encourage me to watch the game away from the ball, watch video over and over and over, and run your systems around your kids. Don't run a system just because you have a system. Who are the kids you have? What are their strengths? Play to their strengths. And so a lot of things that I learned back in, 96, 97, 98, 99 with Dale, we're still doing. And, he's been an incredible mentor. And, in the last, 15 years, I've had Richard Gooch. He's been with me 14 years, and he's an incredible basketball mind. Tammy Pennell, she's been with our program 15 years. So my assistant coaches have been around for a long time. And so that's been a huge, positive benefit for our program. It's, you try to surround yourself with good people, and boy, those two are amazing.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned, Mr. Bradshaw. He's somewhat of a professional mentor. Because how many people I've heard say that about him. He was my man. He'll sit and talk, and it's just like, it's unbelievable. And so and then oddly enough, his Mrs. Bradshaw was my English teacher. So when you said that, I was like, yeah. But so you mentioned your staff, and again, and how important it is to surround yourself with positive, with people you enjoy being around, but also people who love the game and share that same passion. And so I kind of wanted to ask you a question about culture and building that, because we kind of touched on it earlier. Is that, and when I asked you about the question about the pandemic, is kind of everything we do in this world involves people, right? Like, and I think, I think that's one thing the pandemic has really shown people, like, oh man, the people are the most important thing here. And maybe not these goals we're trying to reach, like we need them to achieve the goals. And so I want to kind of ask you about some of the strategies that you focus on when you're building like a culture with your team. What are some, you have the maybe even years when you had like, hey, we have 4 new rookies, almost half the team's new or a quarter of the team's new. And you got to really, emphasize and help focus on some of the things that you value within your program. So what are some of those strategies that you use? And then again, like, what are some of the building blocks to your culture? What do you prioritize?
Well, I'll start with my coaching staff. Having them around for a long time definitely helps, because we're speaking the same language, and we meet and talk all the time. We have youth in our coaching staff as well, with Alyssa and Evan. And so that youth brings inspiring new ideas and energy and vigor. And so that's how we kind of, as a coaching staff, keep challenging one another. With the players, because I've been coaching now 26 years, there's been traditions that have kind of followed through the program, in our off-season training, in our in-season training. One of the things, for example, that has carried through over the years and has become a really strong tradition is how we celebrate our 5th years. How we, that's a big time when our seniors go on to graduate. We want to make that an incredible experience. And so each year that just keeps getting better and stronger. And so that's something that is kind of pulled through the program that everybody appreciates and values. The training mentality that we have in the off season gets stronger and stronger when the kids move through their years. And so they're learning in their first couple of years because they're young and youthful. But then when they get in their 3rd and 4th and 5th year, they understand how valuable it is to train hard, be, intrinsically motivated, and, getting in the weight room, doing the runs. So there's a lot of, we empower the veterans to really push the young kids through. And so, one of the things with Alyssa, for example, she played 5 years for me. She joined our coaching staff, and she spends a lot of time in the off season with the kids doing individuals. Now she works with the provincial team program. She coaches at her school. She's an inspiring young youthful coach, and she's doing great things. So, that makes me proud as a coach, because it's awesome to see kids come out of your program and then go on to do coaching, and they're going on to do great things. Just off topic, Uzoma Azaguera, I mean, she's part of our provincial government. I mean, it's amazing, and she played for our program, so I'm incredibly proud to see her achieving great things. So, taking a step back now, going back to the program, we really try to empower the group we have, and by empowering them, they work harder. And so that's what we value.
Yeah, you almost want them, like you mentioned, to be motivated, like that intrinsic motivation, right? And you're trying to empower them to capture that, whatever they need to do, but almost through role modeling the veterans, right? Looking at them, being, okay, well, this is how we succeed. Because if it's always you being like, hey, you got to do this, come on, and you're grinding them like that, that doesn't work. It really has to come. I mean, you see the most sustainable success when it's coming from inside. You have short bursts when you're kicking someone's butt, but that's not sustainable. So it makes sense. So I want to ask you a question now. If you, the Tanya of now, was going to mentor Tanya in her first year as a university coach, what would be some of the things that you would tell Tanya?
That's an interesting question. Oh my God. Well, I'd probably tell her to relax a little. Because if you've seen me coach, so I'm pretty energized. When I look back, I was lucky because I was mentored well by Dale Bradshaw. Probably if I was to mentor myself, I would probably say, be more of a student of the game now, like read, like I was watching a lot of video, but I wish I would have embraced reading more and studying the game more. Now I had Dale right there, so we were able to talk shop all the time, but there was more attention that I could have paid to on the side, whether it was reading or watching, maybe even watching more video. I did go to a lot of clinics. That's really important for coaches, whether it's online or attending. Obviously during COVID, you're probably watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
But probably the thing that I would have told myself to do was videotape myself coaching in practice and coaching in games. And maybe I would have calmed down a little bit sooner as opposed to with age. Because I think with age, I've calmed down. But yeah.
So you think if you would have just saw yourself, like, I'm doing that, I need to calm down. Like, what's going on? You think it would have had an effect on bringing you down a little bit? Or maybe you were just young and just like, I need this, like age changes us, we gain perspective. You think you would have even listened if someone said to you, hey, look, and you just really need to calm down. Would you even listen to them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just so into it. I'm just, I know I'm an emotional coach, but I'm into it, right from tip off. And I've always said that if I ever lose that kind of, that energy, that explosive energy, then it's time to retire. I still got it though. I still can poke and prod.
Yeah. Well, you still feel it, right? When it's time to coach, you get that. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, some of the advice I've received from other guests is that feeling you're talking about, right? Is like, you should be enjoying it. It should be something that is giving you something, like it's, if you're feeling dead inside before games, I mean, you probably shouldn't be coaching. If you're not enjoying it, you probably shouldn't be coaching. If you, aren't in something, like you said, you're surrounding yourself with people who share that passion and love the game like you do, and you enjoy them, all those things, they matter, because again, like I think, the theme of the episode with you is kind of like the idea of just how important people are, right? And how you're also a person, surprise, surprise, and there's certain things that are going to make you tick and kind of like get you going and allow you to perform better. And I think if those elements aren't there, you're gonna see that your ability to perform as a coach isn't going to be as good as well. And I think those things are so important. I think really have to make sure we keep those things at top of mind, because again, at the end of the day, we're all humans doing these different things, and we want to make sure that we're happy humans doing these things. I think it makes such a difference. It just truly, truly does. And so I kind of we're kind of getting closer to the end of the interview here. Kind of wanted to cue you up on some stuff here. Memorable things. So I kind of want to ask you if, again, and it doesn't have to be one, it can be a few things. You can tell a long story, whatever comes to mind here, but up to you, whether it be your most memorable player that you've played, that you've coached, or most memorable teammate, and just why, or a story about them. What comes to mind?
Wow.
I know this might be hard because there's probably a lot of options.
As a player, some amazing players that I played with, Michelle Chambers, like what a character, neat to play with, hardworking, always had a smile on her face. Like she never had a bad day. And so when we came to practice, it was great. It was fun. And so she was a lot of fun to play with. And she made going to the gym easy, because there were tough days, if you got school and whatever it was, there were tough days, but she would just lighten up the room. When I think back to, gosh, I've coached over 100 athletes at the University of Winnipeg. I've coached some amazing players, just amazing athletes. Aaron Sirocco, let me tell you a story about Aaron Sirocco, Aaron Drazik now.
Sure.
She played on the 1995 provincial team that I coached. We went to the Western Canada Games, and we lost to BC in the final. We actually went undefeated in the round robin, and then ended up losing to BC in the final. And it wasn't BC. But that summer, when I selected that team, I had a group of coaches in Manitoba helping me, because I didn't know all the kids. I was a young coach. I needed help. Mm-hmm. And so all these coaches were saying, oh, you got to pick that kid. That's Erin Sirocco. She's a tremendous high school player. She can do this and that and this and that. And she did okay in tryouts. And I was like, okay, everybody's talking about her. I'm going to pick her because everybody says I have to. So I pick her. And so we picked a really good team. And so we have our first practice of the summer as a team. And so, you've coached, like that first practice is really important. You set the tone and, clear messages right away. Walk in the gym, give my little spiel, welcome everybody. You're part of a great program. We're going to work hard this summer. We're going to go on to the Western Canada Games. So I give them a pump up speech. I said, we're going to get practicing now. Let's get going. We're going to warm up and we're going to start getting into drills. And so we warm up and we're in our first kind of like a warm up shooting drill, and Aaron's going half speed. And I'm like, this is a kid that everybody wanted me to pick. So kind of go over, give her a nudge. Hey, come on, let's go. Got to get going. Got to get her energy level up. Get to our next drill, which is a full court transition drill. And she's going half speed again. Stop. Everybody stopped. Aaron, let's go for a walk. So I take Aaron outside the gym. We're at Riddell Hall at the University of Winnipeg. And we go around the corner and I challenge her. What's going on? Here we just created our provincial team. We just finished cutting 30 kids. You're on the team. How come you're not going full speed? And, we exchanged a few words and went back in the gym. last time I ever had talked to her. She
Ever.
was just like up the whole time. Great summer, played amazing.
Yeah.
And when I got hired at UW, she was the first kid I recruited. And she committed on the spot. So we're having a conversation. We go for dinner and we didn't even get her order in. And she said, "Coach, I'm playing for you." So yeah, that's an incredible story. And, Erin's an amazing person.
That's interesting. So, I mean, you said you exchanged words. Did she say why? Was she like, do you remember?
I could probably, say, yeah, but it's just not something I'm going to share online.
That's fair.
In our podcast.
That's fair.
But we exchanged a few words. We challenged one another, and then we walked in the door and we were on the same page from then on. Yeah.
So I got another one here. So you mentioned a teammate and you mentioned the player. So now just a moment. So this is just the most memorable or one of the most memorable moments. It can be as a player, it can be as a coach, it can be, I've yet to get, I always preface this because I really want someone to give me a story like this, but no one has. But I'm hoping that someone still will. It does not have to be on the court. Right? Like this can be after a game, this could be at halftime. It can be a part of, and people always usually tell a story about something that happened on court because I get it. Things happen on the court that are exciting. So what's your most memorable basketball story?
Probably my most memorable would be, it would be part of being on the court. In 2001, 2002, we had a great young team. We had Joanne Wells, Sally Kuznica. We just had a group of solid players, Heather Thompson. And we had it was a pretty good season. We finished 6th in our division. And so playoffs were 8-1, 7-2, 6-3. So we were 6 and we had to go to UBC in the first round of playoffs in the quarterfinals. And we just went in there, fired up, nothing to lose, went at them, beat them 2 straight. And so this kind of wave is starting. And so we fly back home to Winnipeg, and now we're going to Alberta. Yeah, it was Alberta. And we had to win to advance because this was the semis now. And we go in and we win 2 games of 3. So now we're still playing. We're still alive. We're still on the road. We come back home. Then we fly to BC and play SFU in the final. We ended up losing, but because we were second in our conference, we win a berth to the national championship. So now we fly back home. Now we're on the road again. So we went 4 weeks on the road, and it was just the most amazing ride to get to the national championships. We ended up winning a bronze in the national championships. And probably one of the most memorable moments as a coach, we were in the bronze medal game playing Regina, and we're on the games on TSN, and we're in a timeout. And I played this back after the game was over. So I didn't know it at the time. But when I played back the game on TSN and listened to this timeout, they went to Regina's timeout, and Christine Stapleton is talking to her team about what we're doing in our man-to-man defense and adjustments they're making. And we were actually running our match, a match defense that Dale Bradshaw and, we put together it for our program over the years.
Yeah.
And so that was the most amazing comment that kind of hit me going, wow, like what we do is different because they can't figure it out. We went on to win the bronze medal against Regina. And so that was kind of a really crazy ride for us, but wonderful for the kids. I mean, they just dug in and went with it. And it was tough because we were missing school. We were on the road, we were flying, and they handled it really well.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. I mean, I was just in high school. I was graduating. I guess the year I graduated, the year after maybe. So I remember this. and all those names. Of course, I know all those names. So it just sounds like a crazy experience. And again, more so the fact that you're going and winning all these games in the other people's gyms like that. That's the impressive part. And then to get to nationals, and then to win a bronze. I mean, it's special. Okay, I have two more questions. So one more reflection. In the same line of questioning. Funniest basketball story. Again, same premise. It can be off the court. It doesn't have to be on the court. It can be just anything surrounding basketball. It can be on the court, of course.
You know, probably one of the funniest moments was with my son, Josh. When he was, he lived in the gym, which was awesome. Uh-huh. But like in 96, 97, 98, when Larry and I were married and Josh was coming to the gym every day, Larry would be on one court with his volleyball guys, Josh, and then we would be on the other court, and Josh would always go in between two. And he would always see who he could distract or bug, or he'd poke at the players. He would jump in the ball bins. He would, hide under towels. And there's this one time where I think he had gone over to Larry, and Larry said, "Go see your mom." And then he came to see me, and I said, "Go see your dad." And then all of a sudden he disappeared. And so it was like, where's Josh? And so I had gone around to the other side of the curtain to ask Larry, have you seen Josh? All of a sudden Josh was missing. And so panic, right? You just kind of get that, So I walk out of practice, hunting around upstairs on the second floor of the ductwork, back on the main floor, down in the basement, go into my office, and I'm going, oh crap, where is he? I go around to the other side of my desk. Where is he? He's underneath my desk, hiding, sound asleep.
So how old? He was young at the time. How old is he?
Oh, he would have been about, I'm going to say 4.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And so he knew the ductwork center inside out, but he knew exactly how to poke at us, right? Like he knew how to push our buttons. So here he was sleeping under my desk. He knew we'd find him, but I don't know. But that's
not funny at the time, but in reflecting back, funny.
Yes, exactly.
The time you're freaking out as a parent, you're like, oh my goodness, my 4-year-old's missing.
I know. It was crazy, but the best thing ever. I mean, he was in the gym every day with us, and that was a big part of our life.
That's cool. Okay, so we made it to the end. So I always ask this hypothetical question, and it goes something along the lines of this: if you could talk to every young coach, say in the province of Manitoba, and you could just give them a piece of advice, some advice that you value, advice that you pass on to some of the coaches and people that you mentor, what would that advice be?
I would encourage them to be a student of the game. And, I've been coaching 26 years at the University of Winnipeg. I'm still a student of the game. I try to learn and grow as much as I can. And I would encourage coaches to either get assistant coaches or a mentor that will challenge them, because you want to be challenged. You need to be challenged. And, the other thing that I would say is videotape yourself, right? Put the camera on you when you talk to your athletes, when you're teaching things, so that you hear yourself teach. And I think a lot of coaches can learn a lot about themselves if they just watch themselves.
It's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that advice before, and it makes sense. It's like we record our players, right? We might even record ourselves doing an individual. We record our team doing different actions. But yeah, it's we don't often just point at ourselves and say, okay, what am I saying? How am I saying it? Like because it's very hard to, in the moment, you have no idea how you're delivering messages, or even the things. Sometimes you're in a passionate moment, you don't even know what you're saying. That's really good advice. That's the first time I've heard that one. Did you get that from somewhere, or is this just something you've thought of over the years?
It's definitely something I've thought of over the years. I have done it, and it's hard. It's hard to watch yourself.
I was going to say.
And, people who have watched me coach, I'm running the sideline, and but there's things that I've learned about myself that I have cleaned up, and how I want to talk to my players. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me when I videotaped myself coaching is how much I whistle. Because I whistle out to get the attention of the players. I don't whistle to interfere with the referees. It's to get the attention of my players. And so I've had to learn to curb that a bit, because sometimes the refs find that a little intimidating, right? Here's coach reffing on the sideline with a whistle. But it's been my way of getting my players' attention. But just little things you learn, when you watch yourself, and it's hard. It's humbling.
That's what it is. Exactly. It's humbling. It's very, very humbling watching yourself, especially when it's not choreographed. Like you're not presenting at a coach's clinic or something. You're just reacting, and
exactly.
Very humbling. Absolutely. Well, it's great advice. We're going to wrap it up there. I appreciate you taking the time, and good luck the rest of the season. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. This was a lot of fun.
Okay. Take care, Tanya.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please like, subscribe, follow, and share this series, and reach out to us with your comments on the show. Thanks again for joining us.